All righty. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 91st session. We'll give everybody just a minute or so to join us, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Awesome. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. All righty. I think we are good to go ahead and get started. I'll hand it over to Sunita to get us started.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bree. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Disaster Relief Updates, PPP, COVID, EIDL, and more. We present all this information to you within this hour to hour and a half. Usually these days it's going about 45 minutes to an hour. So thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to go over some housekeeping before we move forward. The webinar is being recorded and it's going to be available at ASKSBDC.com. The slide deck is also going to be available to you once you've completed the survey that Bree will be sending out later today. If you have questions, please place them in the Q&A and not in the chat. If you have issues or technical issues, if you can place those in the chat, that would be great. Please wait until we go through each section, as we may answer your question during the presentation. And please let us know before your question if you're asking about PPP, EIDL, or other types of loans or disaster loans or grants. That would be great to be sure that we can answer your question correctly. Like I said, if you need technical assistance, can you please place that in the chat and Q&A, questions in the Q&A. Things are changing still all the time, not as fast as they used to back in 2020, but this information is current as of last night. So thank you so much again for joining us. Next, please. This is presented to you by the Finance Center, Northern California, SBDC. We are supported by SBA and also the state of California to provide you no-cost advising, training, and workshops. The Finance Center, we specialize in small business loan, putting your loans together for lenders. I am Sunita Maharaj, the director. We have Steve Roth here, lending specialist, and Bree Palmer, our program assistant. Today, we also have Carrie Ellenwood from SBA here. We also have 15 lending specialists on our team that can also assist you if need be. SBDC Northern California footprint. I just want to let you know that we have 36 counties, 18 full service centers, 6 satellite centers, 35 outreach locations, 2 tech programs. We have affiliate programs, and we have a workforce of over 500 individuals that can assist you throughout Northern California. Next, please. You can reach us at the Finance Center at financingsimplified.com/start. Sorry. Can't start, and then find your local center at norcalsbdc.org. Those are the 2 places that you can find us. We also have a new website that you can reach us at as well, and I believe you can reach us at NorCalSBDC that way too. Bree, once she gets a chance, she will put that information in the chat for you as well. I did want to let you know too that we have a newsletter for the Finance Center that went out about 2 weeks ago, and then our second one went out Monday. If you would like to be a part of our newsletter, or if you aren't already, can you please, Bree will also put that information in the chat on how to sign up. Again, thank you so much for being here. Today's agenda, we're going to go over what's new. Steve will go over what's new, California Rebuild Fund, the California Relief Grant, the PPP, EIDL and Targeted EIDL Advance, SBA Debt Relief, the SVOG, the RRF, the ERC, and the SBA team updates will also be provided to us, and upcoming webinars and Q&A. Q&A is throughout this whole presentation, so please ask your questions throughout and we will answer them. We do a pretty good job. Steve does an outstanding job answering most of these, and in the beginning, I will be answering them as well. Next, please. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to Steve Roth. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Sunita. Welcome, everybody. what's new, as everyone probably knows, PPP is closed. Applications closed down the last week of May, more or less on schedule with the end of the program on May 31st. Applications are still in the system. They had until the end of June to be funded. So some of you may indeed have applications that were accepted before the end date to the PPP program, and they have another week in order to come out, get funded by the banks. PPP forgiveness is open, working well for the first draw of PPP grants. PPP forgiveness is now opening for the second draw. I had a half a dozen clients over the last week tell me they'd received emails from their lenders that forgiveness for the second draw was opening up. The expanded EIDL program is open. It is open for new applications. It'll be open until the end of this calendar year. As of now, the expanded EIDL loans are still in the documents being reviewed stage, but we would expect that to begin moving forward soon. When we don't know. The California Relief Grant Program is closed. There is some word that some people are still shown on the wait list for the program, but the program itself closed in May. And if you are still on the wait list, it probably means that some of the people who were going to get funded have not been able to provide the documentation required to complete the funding. And so they'll continue to work with the wait list until all the funds have been dispersed. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund is closed. It closed as of May 24th. And funding has now been suspended for a while for different reasons that Sunita will talk about. But the Shuttered Venue Operating Grant Program is open and moving along, albeit at a slower pace. Next one, Bree. New program, the California Rebuilding Fund. It's ready to accept applications. You go to caloanfund.org. It's a $500 million relief grant administered by the State of California's Office of Small Business Advocate. Even though it says it's a grant, it's actually a loan. The loan amount can be equal to revenue for a 3-month period, capped at $100,000. The terms are favorable, 4.25% for 3 to 5 years. The first 12 months are interest-only payments. If you should go to the website and see if you qualify. Next one. And you can refer all. So, in order to apply to the California Rebuilding Fund, you'll need a whole bunch of documents. I won't go over them all. You can download the presentation afterwards, but it's everything you would expect that you'd need, having been pros at this, going through PPP and EIDL and everything else over the last 15 months. You'll need your federal tax returns, bank statements, a schedule of ownership, including either Social Security numbers, EINs, or ITINs, individual taxpayer identification numbers. For anyone with more than 20% ownership in the business, you'll have to provide a brief description of how COVID-19 impacted the business, and then evidence of business licenses, copy of lease agreements, etc. But there's nothing in this that you haven't already had to do for other programs. Next one. And all communications for whatever's left of the California Relief Grant Program, really go through Lendistry. And we've put Lendistry's phone number and direct email up there for you. Lendistry makes the grant decisions, and Lendistry should send out all notices. Again, the program should be over, except for folks who are already in the system and they're still on the wait list. No new grants. Next one. Payroll Protection Program. As we said, funding for the program is now over, but forgiveness is in full swing. Next one, Bree. Great. So the PPP forgiveness process, very simple. The borrower applies for forgiveness through their lender. The lender reviews the application, gathers any documents that are required, approves the forgiveness application, and forwards it to the SBA. But the lender is the borrower's point of contact, not the SBA. The SBA will do its own review, and then it returns the forgiveness application to the lender. Overwhelmingly, these are going very well. The lender then informs the borrower of the results, and the lender will issue the finer paperwork to the borrower. So the process remains unchanged. The process will be the same for the second draw forgiveness as for the first draw forgiveness. Next one, Bree. So as I said, the forgiveness process is working well. 90% plus of all the PPP loans made were for under $150,000. I don't know the exact percentage because the breakpoints in the slides are a little different, but the overwhelming majority of loans were for under $150,000. And borrowers for under $150,000 will all use the 3508S form, the new simple form that was developed by the SBA last year. It's a one-page form with minimal supporting documentation. You have to remember to initial 2 places and sign 1. But other than that, it's very simple. 63% of the PPP1 borrowers, representing about 54% of the funds, have completed forgiveness. And amazingly and very positively, 99.6% of the PPP1 funds that applied for forgiveness have indeed been forgiven. So, and this is across all types of lenders and borrowers. So the process has worked extraordinarily well. Next one. So some frequently asked questions, should you apply for PPP1 forgiveness now? And the answer is yes. We're well past the 24-week use of funds period. None of the forms are all in place. The processes are open. You should apply for forgiveness as soon as you can. And I believe that all lenders are now open for forgiveness for all borrowers for the first round. Should you apply for PPP2? And the answer is yes. If you're outside your 24-week use of funds period and your lender has opened the process, then you should apply. It'll be exactly the same as the PPP1 process for almost everybody on this call because the loan amounts will be under $150,000. Is the forgiveness different for 1 versus 2? The answer is no. It'll be exactly the same process, same forms. It should work very easily. Should you call the SBA? And the answer is no. You want to work through your lender. There are millions of these loans and very few people at the SBA. The lenders are in place to act as your client service. And they're doing a good job of it too. Next one. So forgiveness terms, remember, PPP2, same as the first one, is spent on eligible payroll costs and other eligible expenses. 60% of the proceeds needed to be spent on payroll. Payroll costs can be higher than 60%. 60% is simply the minimum to qualify for full forgiveness. But employee and compensation levels need to be maintained in a manner similar to the first draw. Again, for loans of under $150,000, it's the very simple 3508S forgiveness form, 1 page. And the 60-40 split applies for both new and second draw loans. Next one, Bree. The safe harbor rules clearly have been working. So the safe harbor, safe harbor is a nautical term. A ship at sea in a storm was allowed to go into port and seek refuge from the storm, even if they didn't have docking arrangements with the country. As soon as the storm was over, they would take off again. And these safe harbor provisions were put in place in June of 2020 in order to make sure that when business owners hit situations outside of their control, such as they were shut down by the government for long periods of time, they couldn't bring back employees for health and safety reasons, et cetera, that there were ways to increase forgiveness by using the safe harbor rules. They're all built into the process. Your lenders will know about them. The forms and explanations are available online. But the point is, it is working. 99.6% of the funds up for forgiveness have been forgiven. So the process is working and working quite efficiently. Next one. Thanks. So remember, payroll costs, minimum of 60%. You can also pay interest on mortgage obligations, but not principal. You can pay rent in the period, utilities broadly defined. So depending upon your business, utilities, would be light, heat, power, etc. But it could also be natural gas if you're a restaurant. Any personal protective equipment that you had to buy for your employees, any, operation expenditures needed to upgrade for safety, property damage costs if they occurred, supplier costs, etc. And eligible costs for payroll is more than just the salary. It's salary, wages, commissions, similar compensation, cash tips equivalent. Anyone who took vacation, parental, family leave, they're all included. If you had to dismiss or separate anyone and pay them for the time, their accrued vacation, that's also allowed. Almost all group health benefits, retirement benefits, state and local payroll taxes are all part of the forgiveness process, and it's why it's worked so well. Next one, Bree. So additional expenses. Remember, if you had to upgrade your software or increase your cloud computing, if you had to bring in additional accounting help, all of that is part of the other 40%. If you had any covered property damage costs, again, this can be part of your other expenses. Supplier costs, in order to take effect out of the loan period, again, covered. And if everyone had to wear masks and gowns and face shields, all of the costs for that are covered as well. So previous PPP loans can also claim these costs as covered expenses as long as you go along with the 60% payroll rule and it's not already been forgiven. So should work. Next one. So again, remember, the idle advance will not be reduced from the forgivable PPP loan amount. Your idle advance was the funds you received at a rate of $1,000 per employee in 2020 when you applied for the idle loan. The covered period was extended from 8 weeks, which is where it started in March, April of 2020 when PPP started, to 24 weeks in June when the program was amended. So everyone has the option to pick the 24-week use of funds period. That applies for both the first and the second draw. Everyone should really take the 24-week use of funds period because it gives you more time to use the funds for payroll. And the more payroll you use, the better you are. And again, things like group insurance, vision and dental are all eligible PPP expenses. Next one. So PPP is independent of your tax returns for the federal government. Whatever you received from PPP is forgiven. Whatever you received and is forgiven is not taxable. The same is true for California, up to $150,000. And so you don't report your PPP loans as part of your gross income. And the same is true for your idle grants and other loan payments, other benefits you receive during the process, grants for the shuttered venue period. So for the overwhelming majority of people, there's no tax effect to virtually any of the programs that came through COVID, but especially not for Triple P. Next one. Keep your documents. This is always good advice. Keep your documents for 4 years. Any payroll related costs, employee benefit costs, utility bills you paid, rent, mortgage interest, etc. Just maintain them like you would any tax file. Next one. So PPP versus idle. Remember, PPP is forgivable. Anything that's not forgiven, which has clearly been a very small amount, has a 1% fixed interest rate on what would be a 5-year term loan. So you get plenty of time to repay anything that couldn't be forgiven. Use of funds, payroll cost, mortgage interest, rent, and utility expenses. You apply through your SBA approved lender, and there's no collateral required. For idle, it's not forgivable. It's a straight loan. The interest rate is fixed at 3.75% for a for-profit and 2.75% for a nonprofit. The loans have a 30-year term. They can be used for a lot of expenses that the PPP loans could not be used for. So if you were a restaurant and you received PPP, you couldn't use it to buy raw materials, even though you might need to restock your inventory so you're able to actually serve food. Whereas your idle loan could be used for working capital purposes, and you could use that to, rebuy the whatever you needed to get your operation running again. You apply directly to the SBA for the idle loan. You work through an SBA approved lender for the PPP loan. Loans over $25,000 were secured, but it's not a hard security. The SBA is not taking formal second positions in assets on loans up to $500,000, which is the new maximum for the loan program. But they are loans and you are personally guaranteed. Next one. So a couple of things to remember. Keep all your related documents for 4 years. Forgiveness for the PPP1 is open and working well. I don't see any reason to believe that forgiveness for the second draw won't do the same. Your lender is your point of contact for all your PPP forgiveness issues. You follow your forms with them. Most PPP borrowers have and will continue to receive significant forgiveness. 24-week use of funds period versus funding for 10 weeks means you've got a long time to use up the PPP grant. Sole proprietors, contractors, self-employed people should all be able to get 100% just by using the money to fund payroll costs. And the idle advance is a grant, and it's not deducted from the PPP forgiveness calculations. Next one. So, PPP has been truly a world-class program. Carrie can probably give better numbers, but over 11 million PPP loans have been made through the first and second draw. I came up with about 825 billion for businesses and self-employed people, and an outstanding 99.6% forgiveness. So the program has really worked well, and it's helped a great many businesses across the country. Next one. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Sunita.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Let's go on to the additional programs. So we're going to go over idle appeal process, targeted idle advance, SBA debt relief, the RRF, SVOG, and ERC. Before we move on, I know there's some people in the Q&A that asked in regards to how to apply for PPP loan. And unfortunately, that has closed out, as Steve had mentioned earlier, that closed out May 31st. Yes, May 31st. And your lender has until the end of this month. If you did apply for the first or second before May 31st, has until the end of this month to actually fund those deals out. So next, please. The idle program, it is open again, and if you have not applied yet, you can do so. And you can go to SBA.com, and we can put some more information in the chat for you as well on how to get there. But SBA.gov, and you can get the go into idle COVID loans and go into idle and apply there. But if you have already applied for idle, please do not apply again. You are going to go through a different process. The new application has extended to December 31st, 2021. Next, please. So SBA has raised the increase on the amount of loan that you can receive. Previously, it was $150,000, and now it is up to $500,000. So businesses that received a loan subject to the previous limits do not need to submit a request for an increase at this time. SBA will reach out directly via email and provide more details about how businesses can request an increase. Now that was in the past, and I'll ask Carrie if there's maybe another way to do that, because I believe you can ask for it now. You would just have to email the SBA and we'll give you that information and just state on the subject line loan increase request, and also provide your previous loan number with that. So the new loan applications and any loans in process when the new loan limits are implemented would automatically be considered for loans covering 24 months of economic injury up to a maximum of a $500,000 loan. Next, please. Idle payments. I know there are some questions in regards to payments. Loans received in 2020, your first payment date has been extended to 24 months from the date you received the funds. But if you want to start paying it earlier, you can definitely do that. And I have that information a little bit later on in the deck on where you would go to get that information for yourself. Loans received this year in 2021, first payment date is 18 months from the date you receive funds. You can also start paying that earlier. You would just call contact servicing. And interest does accrue for the first date since the date that you received the funds, but no payments are required. Next, please. Idle appeal process. You have up to 6 months to get reconsidered on a declined loans or loan increases. So I know 6 months we're saying that, but it may be extended out a little bit. You would just tell the reasoning why you did not ask for the decline to be reconsidered within the 6 months or their loan increase within the 6 months, and good reasoning, and that you should be able to overcome that. If you applied for idle and were denied, do not reapply, as we stated before. Go through the separate and dedicated appeal process with pdcrecons@sba.gov. And that's where you will send your email, and on your subject line, you would say increase of loan amount request or decline loan reconsideration. So that's what you would put on your subject line so they know exactly which group to send it to. A second application will be flagged as a duplicate, so please only apply once and slow the process down. Appeal process is working. I know it's taking some time. From our experience, and this is not anything that anyone else has told us except for what we've been experiencing with our own clients, is about 7 to 8 weeks to be contacted by somebody at the appeal process. So I know it is taking longer than everyone has expected or wanted, but if you can just please hang on and wait it out. We apologize. I know that they're putting more people into the program to try and get through this load, but hopefully that'll start getting a little faster here soon. SBA's team will let you know what documents are needed as well. So once you send in your request, then they should be coming back to you, I believe, within the 7 to 8 weeks to ask you for the additional documents that they will need. Next, please. So targeted idle advance, the SBA will reach out to those who may qualify. You know, somebody was asking if they can apply for that. It's nothing that you can apply for. It's you would have had to have already applied for this in the past. It is not a new loan that you could get or grant. So it's via email with instructions to determine eligibility and submit documentation. Will balance out a previous idle advance to the full $10,000 if the business is in a low income community, suffered greater than 30% economic loss, and has 300 or fewer employees. Those who applied for an idle advance but didn't receive funds due to the lack of funding will receive a full $10,000 if they also meet the above criteria. And effective immediately, applicants can send a request for reevaluation of a targeted idle advance application that was declined to the following email address: targeted advance reevaluation@sba.gov. So if you were declined for that, you can go ahead and reapply. But if it's one of the reasons is you're not in the low income community as you needed to be, then I don't believe you can overcome that. So there may be some other reasons that you were declined. You can also reach out to us and let us see your decline letter and see if that is something that can be overcome or not. Next, please. SBA debt relief. So underserved borrowers will qualify for qualifying loans approved by the SBA prior to March 27th, 2020. Namely, the smallest and hardest hit will receive additional 3 months, so a total of 5 months of principal and interest relief. Community Advantage loans and microloans approved by the SBA prior to March 27, 2020 will also receive 5 months of P&I payments. SBA payments of principal and interest on the first 3 months of newly approved loans will resume for all loans approved between February 1st and September 30th, 2021. All of these are capped at $9,000 a month. And this is also subject to the availability of the funds in the program. Next, please. Loan enhancement. So SBA waives borrower and lender SBA fees for the 7A and the 504 loan program. So we have seen an uptick on these loans as well, because this is really a money saving thing for small businesses. So if you're able to apply for a 7A or 504 to buy a building or anything like that, this might be the time for you to do that before the September deadline. Steve also puts on a great webinar in regards to purchasing real estate that it will come back again in, I believe, July or August. There's older ones as well that you can look at in the library if you need any assistance on that, or you can also reach out to us at loans@ASKSBDC and we can get you help. The bank fees will still apply though, so just FYI, this is not a relief of all fees for these loans. And loan guarantee increases to 90% from 75%. Next, please. The RRF, as Steve had stated previously, it is closed. They are not taking any new applications. It is closed. We do understand, we have been hearing from clients that, because of the lawsuits, that funding has been halted. There's nothing that we know that has come out from legislation that I know of that has come out. So we can't really speak to too much. I don't know if Carrie has any more information to that. We can just tell you what from our experience, what our clients are seeing is they're seeing a letter in regards to the lawsuits that are happening and the halt of funding. I'm not sure what's
that is.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. That is true, Sunita. There's not a lot of comments that we can make in regard to that at this point due to the pending litigation. I can say, though, that SBA is committed to continuing to serve our underserved markets and our small businesses, and we will let you know as soon as we know if Congress legislates more funding for that program. As someone stated, it was oversubscribed. And so we are awaiting any information from Congress regarding additional funding. Other than that, it is halted where it is now.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So this program to provide restaurants with funding equal to their pandemic-related revenue loss up to $10 million per business and no more than $5 million per physical location. Recipients are not required to repay the funding as long as funds for eligible uses were used no later than March 11th, 2023. So for those that did receive it, I know there's a lot of advisors here from the SBDC and other TA providers. Just note that they have to use it for eligible uses, and they have until March 11th, 2023 to use it up. Next, please. The SVOG grant. They are still accepting applications for this grant. You still have to sign up at sam.gov. If you haven't already, please do so. I know that the process on this is also slower. I don't know, Steve, do you know of anybody that has gotten funded yet for the SVOG in your experience for your clients?
The SBA?
For the SVOG, have any of your clients been funded yet?
They're all still in process.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So for my experience as well, everyone is still in process. I'm sure there's people that have been funded. We just haven't, our clients at this point have not been yet. And I believe, yeah, if you know of some people that did get funded, if you're one of your clients, if you can just put that in the Q&A, that would be great too, so that we can see who's, that this program is funding. So the processing period is as follows. First 14 days of the program, grants will be awarded to venues. And this is what was expected to happen. Things happen. This is their best guess when they first opened it up, but this is what was expected to happen. Minimum 90% venue revenue loss. The second 14 days or the second tranche would have been minimum 70% revenue loss. And then after that, 70% revenue loss would be funded out. Initial grant can be up to $10 million with a supplemental at 50% of the first grant. $2 billion set aside for entities with up to 50 full-time employees, and the shuttered venue entities can receive this grant, but if they do, they are not eligible for a new PPP loan, which that is no longer in effect, which closed out on May 31st. Next, please. This grant is administered by the SBA Office of Disaster Assistance, which you'll also hear them as the ODA. The grant amount in general will be 45% of the gross earned revenue if in operation on January 1st, 2019. If the venue was in operation after January 1st, 2019, you calculate the average monthly gross revenue for each full month in operation during 2019 and multiply that by 6. Applicants must have been in operation on February 29th, 2020. If you can apply, if you received an EIDL loan and or a PPP loan in 2020 and 2021. The SVOG can be used for specific expenses such as payroll, rent, utilities, and some other costs, which will be determined. But as always, if you've received a PPP or if you still have those funds, you don't want to use your funds for the same purposes at the same time. Next, please. The ERC. ERC is a refundable payroll tax credit that is offset against certain employment payroll taxes. Rules for qualification and tax credit amounts are slightly different from 2020 and 2021. This applies to for-profit and for nonprofit businesses. Which businesses qualify? Employers that operated during calendar year 2020 and experienced either full or partial suspension of the business operation during Q2, 3, 4 of 2020 and or Q1, 2 of 2021 because of government orders limiting commerce, travel, or group meetings due to COVID-19, or 2020 quarterly gross receipts less than 50% of the gross receipts in the same calendar quarter in 2019, or in 2021, quarterly gross receipts less than 80% of the gross receipts in the same calendar quarter in 2019. Employers not operating in 2019 may use the same calendar quarter in 2020 or the immediately preceding calendar quarter to measure the gross receipt decline. Employers may qualify for the ERC even if they received a first or second draw PPP loan. Self-employment income does not qualify for the ERC. So if you do not have employees, you would not qualify for the ERC. Next, please. SBA support. So here's all the information that I was talking about earlier. The SBA disaster contact information is here. So disaster customer service at sba.gov or reconsideration email pdcrecons@sba.gov. For servicing, you can call 800-487-6019 if you want to start paying on your EIDL loan right away. You can do that, or you can also email them at elpasodlsc@sba.gov. And again, here is Carrie Ellenwood who is the Deputy District Director here in Sacramento.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Sorry for that. I was trying to find the unmute button so I could really be heard. Thank you all for coming today. You have a lot of great questions about our programs, and we've had some help from Steve and Sunita in answering those questions. I think the one thing that I would like to express is that we have hired thousands of temporary workers to process these economic injury disaster loans, and they are going as quickly as they can through those. Part of the challenge is we also have the 4506T, which is your tax return documentation that we need from the IRS. When you submit that, you allow us to request that. There has been a delay in response. So please keep that in mind. I feel terrible that we're not able to get to these quicker, but we are doing as much as we can, as quickly as we can with these applications. So please be patient with us. And as Sunita said, do not reapply if you've already reapplied. That will only clog the system up and flag your account as a multiple application that then gets moved into a different group of people to work on that to figure out what's going on and why there's two applications. So as Sunita said, we've got a bit of a delay in responding to the increases as well as new applications. In regard to the targeted EIDL advance, we've had lots of questions about, I'm in a low income area, how come I'm not eligible for this? The reason for that is when the legislation was crafted, they used the IRS guideline for a low income area. So it's not the hub zone definition, it's not other definitions, it's the IRS statute definition. If you want to know if you're in one of those areas and will be receiving one of those emails, you can go ahead and put in your address on our website at the search tool there to help you find out, am I located in one of these defined areas that the IRS is using to make these funds available through the legislation via SBA. It's complicated. But I also wanted to share with you today that we do have a webinar going on this afternoon. I'm sorry, on Thursday afternoon for that tax credit. So the IRS, the California Office of the Small Business Advocate, and SBA are going to be speaking about that for you. I'm going to send that link in the chat when I get done speaking here today. You will get to hear from the IRS on that tax credit. You'll get to find out more about how that coincides with your other benefits you've received. And also the California State Small Business Advocate is going to be speaking. So please, if you have an opportunity to join that webinar, that will be at 1 o'clock on Thursday. Another webinar we have on Thursday, which is a really great honor for our community and one of our small business owners, Tina Reynolds, who owns Uptown Studios, is going to be on a panel for the LGBTQ month celebration. They'll be talking about what they did to pivot their businesses. There are going to be 4 businesses from across the country, as well as the SBA Field Operations Administrator for that area of our organization. And Julie Verratti, is going to moderate that panel. So we're very excited to be able to offer you that information as well via webinar. And I will put that in the chat after I'm completed speaking here. Steve mentioned I might have some new numbers for you. Unfortunately, I've not had an update yet from the disaster office. And as you all know, the PPP loan program has closed. So I don't have any new numbers today for you. But if there's other questions that come to mind, I'm happy to answer those for you. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate your insight in all of this and information. So next, please, we'll go over what's coming up for the Finance Center as well. So our next disaster update is going to be next month on the 14th from 10:30 to 12. And then we also have a financial boot camp series, which will be July 13th, 20th, and 27th from 10:30 to 12. And then the CDC, we'll have a CDC lender panel on July 15th from 10:30 to 12 o'clock as well. So please join us for any of those that are coming up next month. Like I said, next month, we will just have one disaster loan update on the 14th. Things are pretty static right now, so we just feel that one is going to be sufficient. And if you have any questions, you can also always reach out to us. Next, please. Here at AskSBDC.com or at loans@AskSBDC.com if you have questions, and we will get those answered for you. While we're here, if you have any additional questions that we can answer for you, we can do that. We had we're not as many questions today as we usually do. 41, so still a good amount. I'm going to give Carrie a chance to be able to upload that information in the chat, so that way you can join the webinar tomorrow for the ERC. We always get a ton of questions in regards to ERC, and to hear it from the IRS is probably going to be the best thing ever. So we also have an ERC webinar that we put on last a couple of months ago, and you can find that in our library as well. And you can find that at NorCal SBDC. And we can go back one, Bree, please, and then you can look at where you can go get information in regards to what we have in our library of webinars. You can find it at SBDC, learn.norcalsbdc.org is where you can find older webinars and the ERC. We also have a credit webinar. That's a great one too. So there's lots of great information in our on-demand series in our library. Carrie was able to put that information in the chat. So I think that would be a great one to join. I will even join it if I get a chance to tomorrow as well, because that's some good information for everybody. Lisa is asking, can you clarify opportunity to obtain additional EIDL? Yes, we went through that process. If you've already received an EIDL, you would then go through the reconsideration process and ask for an increase. Once you get that information into the system, then it will take a few weeks. As we stated, nothing is in writing, but just from our experience, taking about 7 to 8 weeks for clients to get contacted back on what it is required of them. So Lisa, yes, you can definitely do that. You can get a copy of this deck as well if you can fill out the survey, and then Bree will definitely send it out to you so you can have all the information you need on hand. Steve said, understood, but the portal is not allowing me to upload the documents. I'm sorry, I think Steve.
I'll take care of it.
Thank you, Steve. Lisa, you are very welcome. Not a problem. Have a great day. Thank you for attending today. Carol is asking, can I apply for an EIDL using 2019 tax returns? You should be able to do that. If you have an extension for 2020, then you would have to provide that as well, but you would have to work with the SBA ODA directly in regards to that, Carol. I'm not sure if you've already done that or not, but you should probably start the process right away, so that way you're in the queue. Tara, yes, would like to know when, how will I be informed to qualify for the rest of their original EIDL? I received only 6 and was told I could get 4K and also another 5. Tara, it depends on when you applied for the increase. So as we were stating, you know, it's taking 7 to 8 weeks or maybe, you know, a little bit more. Hopefully they're going to get through the bulk of it. As you know, it's just not in California that the applications are coming from, but you know, all over the country. So it's just held up a little bit right now, but hopefully we'll move through soon.
That's true, Sunita, and they should be sending you emails. So you will want to be looking in your email. You may want to look in your spam folder just to make sure. If you have not received any notice about that additional targeted EIDL advance or EIDL advance, please check in your email, because you would have received an email from SBA letting you know that you're eligible for that additional amount on the original 10,000 that you got a partial payment of or no payment of, and the same with the $5,000 addition to that EIDL advance.
Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Any more questions before we head out today? Can anyone advise how to restructure SBA balances? Will, I think that you would need to talk to us one-on-one so we can know exactly what it is that you're requesting. I don't know if you already have an advisor. If not, please reach out to us and then we can sign you up and get you an advisor to help you through this. Thanks, Will. PPP1 loan received and end of 24-week covered period, okay, was in 10/27. We have not been able to apply for forgiveness. What happens if our lender does not open up for after 10 months have passed after a covered period? We've seen that a lot, Cindy, but I think everyone should have been opened up. If you went to, say, Cabbage or SmartBiz or one of those online aggregators or lenders somewhat, please check your note and find out who your real lender is. So you could have gone through another lender, and that's who you need to go to ask for forgiveness. So you'll need to go through them. I don't know if the Cabbages or the SmartBizes are going through their portal for the forgiveness. So Cindy, I would find your note, and most of them went through DocuSign. So if you look through your emails and just look for DocuSign, you might be able to find your note if you have not kept it aside. We went through Cabbage. We contacted our real lender, and they were supposed to send an email June 1st regarding the forgiveness.
Yeah, so just as a bit of information on some of the online lenders, they joined in this process to help small businesses, and they are now working through the next session or section, which would be the forgiveness, and they are working to get through that process. So may need a little patience with them, but certainly SBA is aware of some of these delays, and we are working directly with those lenders to facilitate your ability to make that request for forgiveness. So hang in there with us on that one.
Let's see here. Karen is asking, PPP sole prop, do I need to use X amount of weeks for payroll, or can I allocate payroll anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks for the forgiveness application? Yes, you have between 8 and 24 weeks to use up those funds. So Karen, yes, you can do that. I know somebody else was asking, they didn't have payroll and how do they ask for forgiveness? If the PPP was all about payroll. So if you did not use the funds at all for payroll, then that would end up turning into a loan and not a grant. So you had to have followed the rules for it to be a grant and not a loan. We have answered about 57 questions so far today. Any more questions before we head out? Okay. If you do have any more questions, you can always reach us at loans@asksbdc.com, and we can answer the questions from there as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for attending the 91st session, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next one. Thank you so much to Steve and Bree for being here as always. Take care, everyone.